Consider Route 1 Fusion for your dealership's digital retailing. Customers can build vehicle financing options online with estimated payments, trade-ins, and even showcase optional protection products. Faster process, elevated sales, more satisfied buyers. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect for a demo today.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Monday, November 24th, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, GM doubles down on gas engines with a $5.5 billion spending plan. Mercedes plots a comeback to retake America's luxury crown, and a Michigan dealer group sets its sights on 40 stores in 7 years. Plus, Michael Berube, CEO of Calstart, talks about how the public sector should be helping educate consumers about EVs.
What's the right education? What's the right messaging? What's the right planning? Just laying out a plan for where does charging have to be? Where are the gaps?
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. General Motors is investing $550 million at 2 component plants to support expanded U.S. vehicle production in 2027. GM will spend $250 million at its Parma Metal Center near Cleveland for sheet metal stampings, and $300 million at Romulus Propulsion Systems outside Detroit to boost output of 10-speed transmissions for full-size trucks and SUVs. The investments are tied to GM's plan to increase production of internal combustion vehicles. They bring total spending connected to the production increases to nearly $5.5 billion. Mercedes-Benz has an ambitious plan to reclaim the top spot among U.S. luxury brands, with 400,000 annual retail sales by the end of the decade. That's 100,000 more vehicles than it delivered last year. Mercedes-Benz USA CEO Adam Chamberlain laid out the strategy at a dealer meeting, calling it aspirational but achievable. Chamberlain tells us at Automotive News the plan hinges on the brand's largest ever product offensive, including high horsepower electric AMG models and upgraded SUVs.
It's not either or, it's both.
Chamberlain says Mercedes will offer a diversified powertrain mix after seeing little return from its EV-only strategy. More on this story in a minute with our own Urvash Kakaria. And Coleman Automotive Group is partnering with Prime Dealer Equity Fund to fuel rapid expansion. The companies closed their 3rd joint dealership acquisition in October. The partnership pairs CEO Kyle Coleman's dealership expertise with Ralph Marcoselli's private equity fund, backed by 12 investors. Together, they're targeting 40 stores over 7 years, focusing on underserved Midwest markets where larger groups haven't established dominance yet. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Here to talk more about Mercedes' comeback ambitions in the U.S. is our own Urvash Kakaria, who covers the automaker for us at Automotive News and spoke with its U.S. CEO, Adam Chamberlain. Urvash, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Hi, Kel. Thanks for having me back.
Well, Urvash, how are dealers feeling about ramping up core SUV supply and new EVs? Is there any inventory risk, especially after recent struggles with EQ models sitting on lots?
So, Mercedes-Benz had their national dealer meeting in Vegas on Saturday, and the dealers I spoke with were unusually optimistic about the brand. They've struggled for the past 5 years under a previous regime that underwent a controversial field reorganization, and they kind of botched the EV rollout. And now we have Adam Chamberlain, who used to be the Mercedes-Benz USA head of sales. He's come back. He was at Lithium Motors most recently. So he's a known entity, which has given the dealers a lot of confidence. One of the dealers I spoke with, I asked him, how did you leave the meeting? What was your sentiment? And he was like, this is, not even a question how much of a, night and day difference it is under the new regime at Mercedes-Benz USA than it was at the last. And during the meeting, the CEO, Adam Chamberlain, basically laid out a very ambitious growth plan. They want to essentially get to 400,000 in annual sales by the end of the decade. That's about a third more than the number of cars they retailed last year. And they're going to do it with a kind of a a massive product blitz. Mercedes has talked about globally. Mercedes has talked about, bringing 40 new and redesigned or updated models to the US over the next 5 years. And so that is going to drive the growth. But Chamberlain also mentioned something that the retailers, I'm sure, are going to be excited about, and that is, being more consistent with sales programs and with incentives. He says he's talked to Stuttgart, to the headquarters in Germany, and he's got a commitment from them to essentially have a incentive plan for the entire year, which means that for dealers, it means that they will have more of a uniform or a more long-term plan of the incentives that they can expect throughout the year. So they're not constantly, planning for incentives 1 month and then no incentive program the next month. So it's kind of smoothens out their business planning as well. So these were some of the reasons why dealers were very enthusiastic with the meeting.
Well, is Mercedes concerned about asking dealers to wait until late 2026 or 2027 for key products while BMW and Lexus continue gaining ground?
I think 2026, they're going to get several important products throughout the year. In fact, the electric CLA, which is their first sort of next generation model, which is, it's the same car, but now it's offered with different powertrains. That's been a big switch from Mercedes, where a few years ago, Mercedes was all in on EVs and they had developed this EV-only line called the EQ line, which really didn't sell well. It was overpriced, over-designed. So they're going to get the CLA at the end of this year. Next year, I believe in the first half of next year, they're going to get significant refreshes of their two most important vehicles, the GLE and the GLS. These are both, the GLS is an SUV, the GLE is a crossover. So it's not like all the products going to come at the end of 2026. The two big AMGs will start coming at the end of next year, but dealers can expect a lot of strong new product or updated product to come throughout the year.
Perfect. Urbash, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Coming up, Calstart CEO Michael Berube talks about how the government and nonprofits can help dealers move EVs off their lots. That's next on Daily Drive.
Many customers expect a fast, online-friendly experience. Are your digital retailing tools meeting your business needs? Are you paying for features you don't use or that aren't fully and easily integrated into your process? Consider Route 1 Fusion. Fusion is built to streamline vehicle sales and meet modern customer expectations. Whether customers are at home or on the go, Fusion helps you reach them where they are, keeps your sales process flowing, and ensures your team spends more time focusing on customers instead of manual processes. Optimize your in-store process. Fusion provides your customers with a seamless, mobile-friendly experience to build vehicle financing options online. Fusion handles trade-ins, calculates estimated payments, and even showcases optional protection products all in one place. With Fusion, customers can submit credit applications, receive decisions, and view payment options without needing to start over in-store. It's designed to make the buying process faster, easier, and more accurate for both customers and your team. Consider Route 1 Fusion for your dealership's digital retailing and deliver a better, more efficient buying experience that integrates directly into your existing in-store process. Discover how Fusion can boost sales and enhance customer satisfaction. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect with Route 1 for a personalized demo today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Federal tax credits are gone, EV demand is stagnating, and automakers are shifting gears. That all leaves dealers wondering how they're going to move EVs off their lots and avoid a vicious cycle of floor plan cost. Michael Berube is a former Department of Energy official and the new CEO of Calstart. He spoke with our own Molly Boygon on the Automotive News Shift podcast about how the government and nonprofits can help through customer education. Here's a piece of their conversation.
Do you feel like the industry up until this point has basically done what you're saying needs to be done, advocating for supportive policies?
It's a big industry, lots of different players out there. Everyone I talk to is aligned with they need stability. I think there's still a discussion about how do we get there? How do we do that? But I think they're aligned with that need to get to stability. And as you said, it's a complex regulatory environment in the U.S., federal, California as well. I think what I hear from industry folks, right? And we have to be clear, this is not just a policy question, right? As well, it's a question of readiness of, the technology is good, but readiness of the entire system. Do we have enough charging out there? Is there enough signage for charging? Some of this doesn't have to be the overly sexy stuff, but literally, do we have some of the basics out there? And it is all growing, and industry is certainly, I think, investing a lot of money on deployment of charging. Public sector has, restarted that deployment of public charging as well. So I think, the industry sees like we need to do that. One of the things I think I hear from all the time is they want groups like Calstart to be working on saying, what are the barriers? What are the things that are a challenge? And it's difficult sometimes for any one company to address those on their own. They can address their own products. They're great at making their products, selling and marketing their product. But some of these things cut across the industry, and they need groups that can step up. And quite honestly, as the federal government maybe is saying that's less of their role at the moment, that's where nonprofits like Calstart can come in and say, how do we build those things, whether it's what's the right education, what's the right messaging, what's the right planning, just laying out a plan for where does charging have to be, where are the gaps. Those are things that transcend any one automaker.
On the education piece, I was at Electrify Expo a couple of weeks ago out on Long Island moderating a panel, and this came up so many times. People in the industry really well equipped to develop the technology and understanding the kind of interconnectedness of infrastructure and affordability and, access and all these other issues. But there was sort of a consensus that the way that the industry has gone about educating people about electric vehicles has not been successful. And the example that I thought was most poignant was the fact that companies and the government are expecting people to talk in terms of kilowatt hours, which is like a term that just makes your eyes glaze over. Why do you think that? Well, first of all, do you agree with that? And if so, why do you think that education has been such a challenge?
I absolutely think it's a challenge. I will actually point out there is a group, a federal advisory committee called the EV Working Group that was set up, and their set of recommendations that they put out, and it covered from light duty, heavy duty. The top recommendations all had to do with, one set of the top recommendations all had to do with education, and that was light duty and medium heavy duty. It was for dealers and consumers. So, and that that group, the EV Working Group, was made up of industry folks, stakeholders across the spectrum. So everyone, I think, agrees, and it, we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. It's a new technology. It's a new, new area. There are some learning how to talk about it. I think one of the challenges here, and I think dealers get a bad rap. Sometimes people blame it and put it on dealers. Dealers sell what they have for product. There's a lot of turnover at dealers. You have to train people. Different cars, different technologies evolving. So it's a little different for each one. So I think we need to provide a little bit more consistent tools. We're also now, we're maturing, right? When I say we're at an inflection point, kind of the starting point you brought up, I think we're at an inflection point where we had a lot of experiment. We had multiple charging standards. Well, the industry in the U.S. has coalesced around a single approach to charging. So now we can talk about that more consistently and go forward. There's a little messiness right now, right, as you have some of the old and some of the new still out there. But things like that allow a little more stability. I do think we have to be putting the consumer first. It's, as technology has been evolving, it's been more about the technology. Now it's just, we've got to be, how do you make it simple for consumers? The range used to be a big issue. Now, new cars have the range consumers need generally. They have multiple range options typically, so they don't need to worry about that as much.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And you were also talking earlier about, examining the challenges to adoption. And one of the persistent ones has been affordability. And I have heard some really interesting perspectives on the end of the individual EV tax credit for new and used electric vehicles. There was a piece in one mainstream news outlet just this week about whether or not this will the end of the tax credit will force the industry to really examine and make sacrifices and figure out price for EVs. I wonder what you're hearing from members about what the impact of the end of the individual EV tax credit will be on vehicle price.
Yeah. There's definitely going to be some sorting out that happens, but And you know, like, I would have much preferred the tax credit stay there, but I do think we have to remember that the production tax credit for batteries is still in place. That provides, you know, up to, if you look at a 100 kilowatt hour vehicle, that'd be almost $5,000 a vehicle in credit. So that will continue to help. I think it will force the pricing issue to have to sort itself out. The other thing we have to think of, that if you look at what the that investment tax credit has been, it is largely paid for the over $100 billion of investment that companies have announced in new battery plants and in facilities. A number of those plants are built, some of those commitments made. Once those get up and running, I do believe some of that money will help flow into offsetting that cost delta. And the other thing we got to look at is that costs are coming down. I mean, I was responsible for development of batteries across the United States when I was at the Department of Energy. Battery costs have continued to drop every single year. We are continuing to hit our battery cost targets. And so we look over the next few years, I think you see that plus that production tax credit allowing that affordability equation to remain. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, today, depending where you live in the country, right, on average, it's over $600 of fuel savings per year for driving an EV, $6,000 in lower maintenance and repair over the life of the vehicle. And when you think about that maintenance and repair, that helps used vehicles especially a lot. When you buy a used vehicle, a bigger chunk of your overall cost is in the maintenance repair side. So that will help the used vehicle market. More used vehicles are out there, which then helps the overall ecosystem. So I do think that the economics actually do work largely, but it's still being worked out, like you said, and people understanding what that is. I have to say, vehicle prices overall, all vehicles, right, forget electric, have gone up a lot, right, through the time of COVID. Production was way down, prices came way up. I think we're still electrification side, we're still sorting that out as a overall industry. I think you listen to JD Powers, there's going to be some sorting out on the pricing volume still happening. And that's a much bigger trend than electrification, but I think electrification will benefit from that.
You can hear Michael Berube's full conversation with our own Molly Boygon on the latest episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast. That's available now wherever you get your podcasts. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Urvash Kakaria, Lindsay Van Hully, and Paige Hodder for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on EV sales, manufacturing investments, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for our interview with Randy Parker, CEO of Hyundai Motor America.
If you look at a lot of our products today, like the adventure-ready Palisade XRT Pro as an example, will give you a good sense of where the brand may be headed in the future.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.